Good morning, folks. My name is Benjamin Moyer. I am a PhD student at the University of Maryland, College Park. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a trans-dimensional Bayesian method for the joint inversion of gravity and magnetic data. So our background and motivation here, why should we care in the first place about this? I think other folks have done a pretty decent job of explaining why lava tubes matter, so I'll restrict my remarks more to why we would care about potential field data. So unlike seismic data, we do not require physical coupling with the planetary body in question. So data can be taken from satellites, orbiters, rovers, etc. We've already done this on the Earth, and Mars, and the Moon, as you can see in that figure on the far right. These are directly linked to the density and magnetic susceptibility variations of interest with some of the structures that we're looking at, and it's far more accessible for other planetary bodies. So, like I said, we already have these data sets, or we'll shortly have many of these data sets for other bodies of interest. But there's a problem with working with this data, this gravity and magnetic data, at least within this framework, and that it's the inherent non-uniqueness of the inversion, and that usually necessitates some sort of forward modeling or substantial prior information, model regularization, or assumptions about internal interfaces in order to work around this. So our Bayesian approach offers an alternative to inferring subsurface structure from gravity and magnetic data. So the flow chart here really gives the gist of the story for this Bayesian inversion. I use a reversible jump Markov chain Monte Carlo algorithm. So we start, we propose some sort of a model. We go ahead and we figure out what the misfit is from that forward modeled structure. We compare it to our actual data, and we go ahead and we accept or reject this model. If the data fit improves, we always accept it. If it doesn't improve, we might accept it with some small probability, and then we essentially loop ad infinitum and keep perturbing the model parameters, recalculating the misfit, and then randomly sampling and saving these models along the way. The exception rejection criterion is according to the Metropolis-Hastings criterion as modified by Green in 1995. And then eventually, if we've done this right, we should converge to a stable region of the model space, ideally with a very low misfit. So our approach is self-parameterizing. We have a random number of Voronoi nuclei, and we project these Voronoi cells, these nuclei, onto a regular grid for ease of computation. We pre-calculate the sensitivities for each of those small voxel grids, and then we GPU accelerate that matrix multiplication for greater computational throughput. This is a very computationally expensive problem. Even in 2D, 3D is much, much harder. And then as we iterate, we can vary the number and positions of the cells. We can add a cell, we can delete it. We can change its geologic unit. That's one way that we bake in sort of the prior. Basalt has a known density, a void space would have a known density contrast. We also allow ourselves to perturb the density and magnetic susceptibilities by a small amount around those fixed values. And then we can also update the noise hyperparameter. Work for me? No, I have a small video showing a convergence of a representative chain. So some synthetic results here. I created a synthetic model, just a simple cylinder of a lava tube, buried cylindrical void of 8 meters radius, centered at 25 meters depth. This roughly approximates a lava tube. The void unit has a base magnetic susceptibility contrast, the value given there, 0.002, and a density contrast of negative 2,850 kilograms per meter cubed. And we generate this ensemble, we construct this ensemble from 128 chains of 10,000 iterations apiece. And then we go ahead and analyze the ensemble of density models that we get out of this process and generate these summary statistics. So the mean, the median, etc., can be found. So this is really the punchline here. That red circle there shows the input cylinder, and in white there we have the median model density contrast. So we're getting a fairly decent fit. We have the standard deviation and density contrast down below. Feature I would like to point out is that we have relatively little going on outside of the region of interest here, outside of that cylinder, which is a good sign. That means that's a very quick, dirty indication that we have achieved good convergence. So the boundaries of these structures are often associated with the large standard deviations, as you see there, but just sort of looking at the summary figures again, we have the mean model there, the median, and the standard deviation. We're fitting that synthetic cylinder quite well. So now let's move on to some real data. So I took the coincident data from the Skull Cave survey. This Skull Cave data was previously collected at Lava Beds National Monument by the TubeX project, which I believe is now kind of wrapped into geodes. This is an analog site for lunar lava tubes, and the roughly linear survey geometry contains gravity, magnetic, and LiDAR data. We had 21 usable data points in the gravity survey, which were subsequently corrected and crigged, and of course, thousands of the magnetic survey points, which were subsequently corrected and interpolated. So what does it look like? We applied this method to the Skull Cave datasets. Again, we have a void unit as previously defined. The ensemble is constructed in exactly the same way, 128 chains of 10,000 iterations apiece, and the existence, depth, size, and shape of the tube were successfully retrieved. The peak density contrast of the void space in that mean model is very close to the theoretical density contrast that you would expect to see. Our probability of a void unit where we know the tube exists is quite high, on the order of 95%. There are two other features here of interest, though. If you look, so the main body of the tube would be at approximately 90 to 95 meters offset there. There is this smaller object off to the side, about 20 meters, which Dr. Ernest Bell had suggested might be another tube, and our joint inversion is showing that this is probably the case. We're getting a very high probability that there is a void unit there. The mean model density contrast is shown. And then the median really tells the picture. For the main body there, the median actually quite nicely matches the known cross-section from the LiDAR. Again, that other small feature right next to the main body does appear in the median model density contrast. This could be a small branch that we simply don't know about. And then again, with the standard deviation and density contrast, we get a high region, a high standard deviation around what is presumably the edge of the tube, and then a nice low region of a nice low standard deviation in density contrast and magnetic susceptibility contrast in the middle of where we know the tube to be. So the depth to the top of the cave is approximately 3 to 7 meters below the surface. The diameter of the lava tube is approximately 18 to 22 meters, according to this work. And this compares, again, favorably with the LiDAR data from inside the tube. And again, there are two other smaller possible tubes or branches from the main tube that appear with some degree of certainty. So conclusions and further work. The simple synthetics verify that the method does in fact work. Joint inversion improves computational throughput by leading to a more rapid convergence of the chains, and the joint inversion of the real data closely matches the LiDAR scans of the known sections of the tube. Further investigation is necessary to fully demonstrate and verify the ability of the algorithm to detect and characterize some potential previously unknown structure. And then moving forward, we intend to invert for 3D subsurface structure with 2D fields of data. Computationally, this is even more expensive and will require various tricks to approximate the full dense sensitivity matrix using low rank approximations, wavelet decomposition, something of this nature. So with that, I thank you.